Grassy Waters is so dynamic in the way that it holds water, and it's mainly due to the variances in topographic relief within the system. We're in the slough right now, the deepest part of the whole marsh, and sloughs basically are big sheet flow rivers within large marshes. Historically, this was the headwaters to the Loxahatchee River, and it flowed for about 20 miles without obstruction. Nowadays, there's roads, railroad right-of-ways, very narrow bridge crossings, even homes that redirect its flow. The marshes of South Florida are the most recently evolved ecosystems in North America for all intensive purposes. The peats in here, though, that's something that we are just beginning to explore the asset value of them because of their ability to store carbon dioxide. This may very well be one of the largest natural assets the city of West Palm Beach has in the future. So we have gone from a slough to a wet prairie within Grassy Waters, within about a 4.5 or 5 miles distance. So what that means is topographical changes. And where we started in deep water in the slough, we're now that over just a foot of water here. This area actually dries out the quickest during the long, drawn-out dry seasons, particularly when drought regimes frequent us. But this is where the wildlife will actually start foraging and moving their way laterally through the whole marsh, following that regression of water because of this gradient. And to a lot of people, there's always connotations that marshes are mucky. These marshes at this latitude, actually, because of historical relationships to the ocean, are made up of mineral soils. Sand, as you would most describe. Quartz silica, hard bottom. There is a mutual relationship between spatial scale and rainfall that make wetlands such as Grassy Waters Preserve particularly important in respect to water supply and flood protection. Consider that for every inch of rainfall falling on every square mile is equal to 17.4 million gallons of water. Plug in the 20 square miles that Grassy Waters Preserve encompasses times the 60 or so inches of annual rainfall, and you have over 22 billion gallons of pure fresh water collected for free every year. What Grassy Waters is really made up of is mainly wet prairies and sloughs that from the standpoint of nutrients, they really don't require very much to maintain them. They have a certain amount of self-autonomy, as you would call it. They recycle their own nutrients from the leaf litter and debris that they accumulate. There's not much water movement in these marshes. It's what they call sheet flows. But what happens because of the slow progression of water, if nutrients ever do get introduced into the system, all of a sudden you get these strange habitats that start cropping up. And this is willow, and it's a fairly substantial size willow, and it covers about 1,500 acres of Grassy Waters in our northwestern quadrant. And it was all introduced via some nutrients that got into the system from an alligator farm back in the 60s. What we do as restorationists is to actually eliminate these because they don't really function for the purposes intended to support the snail kite. The original state that we start working with is basically eutrophic marsh, and then we turn it back into this. Now it's hard to imagine that only 4 years ago this marsh that you're looking at now, fully restored, looked like the original one that we just viewed. Although much of the driving forces of restoration is for maintaining and enhancing the ecological integrity of Grassy Waters Preserve, combined with its vital service of provisioning water supply for the city of West Palm Beach and the town of Palm Beach, there is an added inducement, which is meant to recover lost storage that has been compromised over the years by eutrophication. What you see before you is about 4 weeks into the process of restoration. We've put up the levee to separate us because we're going to have to dewater this whole site. We've scraped down initially just what was on the surface, the biomass, preparing for the time when we can actually dewater. And the dewatering will dry up the whole site. We'll actually be able to refine the amount of scraping down that we're doing to get back down to that mineral soil that's so important into the restoration process, to where we can bring back what was here historically, and that was a wet prairie, low vegetation, wetland, emergent species. If you look in the distance, beyond that white berm, containment berm, is what we actually started with. And that's all willow, and it's all nutrient triggered, and it's not what was here historically, and it certainly doesn't support the targeted species that we use as our objective in our restorations, which is the Everglades snail kite. There are no snails in here because they can't live in this particular habitat. They absolutely need that wet prairie system. We at Grassy Waters actually target one specific species because everything else seems to be able to live within its confines or needs. And that's the Everglades snail kite, one of the most endangered species in North America next to the California condor. It's been on the endangered species list since 1973, when the endangered list came out from the federal government. They are here. And it all starts, their food chain starts with the apple snail itself. And they all climb up stems, need water to exist. And basically, the snail kite, over 10,000 years of evolution, have pretty well cornered themselves into where they only eat one food source, which is the apple snail. And it's not a big species. But they theoretically only eat escargot. And their beak, their talons, their flight patterns, their hunting, everything has basically gravitated around consumption of this one particular species. In the final analysis, the one true measure of success of any worthwhile restoration is to see living proof that the species you were wanting to provision actually inhabits the habitats you have created. Seeing the endangered Everglades snail kite successfully living out their life cycles, foraging and nesting within a site that once held little promise, is the true litmus test that one got it right.